Hey everybody, welcome to Geeks and Freaks, where we're at day 11 of our Halloween countdown. Rockstar Games are most well known for their Grand Theft Auto series of games, which is fair enough because the series has been knocking around for 20 years and has got more than 10 titles already out. But chances are you know of another Rockstar series, Manhunt, which although never becoming the powerhouse franchise that Grand Theft Auto was nonetheless famous for its controversial nature surrounding its violence and gore. Petitions to ban the game were thrown around left and right during launch, and the sequel Manhunt 2 was banned or seriously censored depending on where you're coming from. The concept behind Manhunt is simple. James Earl Cash is a convicted felon. What he's done we don't know, but what we do know is this: he's been a very naughty boy and is sentenced to death for his crimes. Waking up post-death sentence, Cash is understandably confused before a voice appears to tell him what's going on. His death was faked and he's got a chance at redemption. The doors are unlocked and he's free to go. But first, he has to star in a series of snuff movies. For those of you with a more innocent mind, a snuff movie is a real-life occurrence where a horror film will instead replace those well-paid actors and expensive special effects with a few unwilling victims in a series of actual real-life murders, all of which are filmed and then sold to the kind of people who thought that the Saw movies weren't quite realistic enough. Yeah, this is an actual thing. And now you're probably getting a feel for why the game was so controversial when it came out for PlayStation 2 in 2003 and Xbox and Windows in 2004. You see, with a premise that everyone is paying good money to watch, the mysterious voice, now identified as the director of this little flick, will encourage you to pull off the goriest kills possible, with light kills being pretty deadly and heavy kills being downright barbaric. The game has a huge focus on stealth, with standard combat available, but a constant emphasis on how important it is to avoid direct confrontation, with enemies quickly and easily finishing you off if you're unlucky enough to end up in a brawl. Sneak attacks are your main priority. Cash can hide in the shadows and around corners, create noise and kick certain objects to attract enemies into a position where they can be killed without hassle. Stealth kills do have one downfall. Unlike hand-to-hand combat, killing enemies stealthily requires the use of a weapon, which range from single-use items like plastic bags and shards of glass to more cumbersome affairs like the blackjack or baseball bat. Sneak attacks are broken into 3 sections. When in range, players will hold the attack button to enter kill mode, which will then bring up a series of coloured triangles as long as the player stays in range of his victim. White triangles are light attacks, yellows are middle, and red are heavy violent attacks. Simple white triangle attacks will still kill your enemies fine, and usually pretty gruesomely to boot, but the game relies on your bloodlust to make you take the risk of staying behind the enemy that bit longer just to see what horrible acts you can perform. The game continues like this for most of the story, occasionally adding new features or sporadically adding set pieces to keep the game fresh enough to completion. Manhunt is set in Carcer City, which canonically is located in the same universe as Grand Theft Auto. But don't expect the same picturesque views you can get from atop Mount Gilead. Carcer City is a dank cesspool, overrun by gangs and beaten into ruin. There's no portion of the game where you don't feel like you're 5 steps away from catching HIV, and that does wonders to add to the gory kills you're going to be pulling off seconds later. Aesthetically, Manhunt borrows heavily from the snuff film concept it's portraying. Scenes are grainy and blurred, and scanlines and static appear on the screen during menus and takedowns. It's things like this that remind you that you're constantly being watched, which combined with the dark realistic atmosphere makes this a truly nail-biting affair. The game could do with a few tweaks. Annoyances like the poor camera controls and clunky fighting mechanics make the game seem dated, but atmosphere-wise really add to the overall helplessness you feel when you're stalking around waiting for that perfect kill. The gameplay is interesting enough to keep you hooked. The atmosphere is, whilst not typically Halloweeny, still incredibly scary, and the gore, even by today's standards, is still pretty brutal. So give this one a play if you're looking for a twisted violent piece that got so many knickers in the twist just 13 years ago.